Good morning, everybody still here in Colorado. It's nice to be back and to be with you all again. It's been a while. Happy Sabbath. Let's open with prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you for this good message. We thank you for good friends and good fellowship in this good movement. And we pray that you'll be with us now and even until the end. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so thanks. Just reading the chat. Lots has happened. I guess you've heard. So I ended up dropping November 5th, and I'm on board July 18. So maybe you have some questions, but I guess I'll present this first. It's kind of quick. Okay, let me just get on with presenting this. Okay. So you see I've got July 18 there as the Sunday. Okay, this study isn't about July 18 though. This is something that Elder Terry presented in Fiji a couple of months ago, and it was an old study from way back. Elder Jeff developed it, and it was called The Three Romes. And so I've done the board work already to save time. The Three Romes. So you have pagan Rome, papal Rome, and modern Rome. I didn't put the papal Rome line there because we don't make any application of that yet. You know, the Ostrogoths, Vandals, the Ostrogoths, Heruli, and Vandals, in whatever order it is. But it's basically a model which shows that Rome takes down 3 geographic areas before it rules the world supremely, in the words of Elder Jeff when he used to teach this. I say Rome, pagan Rome, papal Rome, and modern Rome, but we know Rome has nothing to do with end-time events. It's still the counterfeit church, but I mean the papacy has nothing to do with political or social events at the end of the world in our time. So I put King of the North there as well, because that's a bit more correct. So it's the King of the North, so there's no papacy, no Jesuits, nothing like that. And the King of the North now, I'm going to say it's America, or we're teaching that it's the Republican Party. You already know to shout out, don't you? Interrupt if you have anything to say. So, pagan Rome, the model's found in Daniel 8:9. And it says that pagan Rome first conquers the east, which would be Syria, in 64 BC. And then in 63 BC, in the words of Daniel 8:9, the pleasant land, which is the glorious land, that's where it lines up with the national Sunday law in the US. And then the third geographic territory is the south, which would be Egypt, which was the Battle of Actium 31 BC. And then it rules for a time. Rules for a time, which is 360 years, which takes you to the end of pagan Rome's rule. Then modern Rome takes over, but we don't have that line. Papal Rome, did I say modern Rome? Papal Rome takes over, but we don't have that line. And so we're going to look at our line for what I'll call the King of the North. And you get that from Daniel 11:40 to 45. Okay, going to check my notes. Any thoughts?
I have a thought. Thank you for your presentation. So that Syria aligns with the King of the North, but it's the King of the East, right? There.
Syria was east of Israel. No, it's not. How did we teach that? Oh, no, sorry, I'm getting two different models mixed up. How is the East Syria?
Babylon and Syria are east, but they have to go around and up and come in from the north, and that's why they were always called the King of the North. Because they can't come in from the east, they have to come in from the north to get to Israel. I believe that's the reason why.
That works for Babylon, which is Iraq area. Does it work for Syria? Because Syria is actually north of Israel. So Syria is the king of the north. Anyone remember? We're going back like 30
Because they
years.
have to travel in from the north. They can't come in from the east. At least that's the way I remember it. Even though they're situated to the east, they have to come into Israel from the north.
What was Gloria's question? I missed what her question was, why we're talking about Syria.
Can you ask it again, please, Gloria?
Well, we said that the you have to conquer the east, the glorious land, and the south. But we're lining it up with the north there. We're considering that east as north, right? Because Rome comes and conquers Greece, which is Ptolemy.
64 BC, you said, sorry. Thank you.
So I'm looking at a map, and Damascus is north of Israel. I mean, the whole of Syria is technically east, but it's still north of Israel.
So it's something like that, my expert map drawing. So when you talk about Babylon being the king of the north, that's Babylon, which is in the area of Iraq, then that's okay to call it the king of the north, even though it's east, because, as Christine said, it had to travel this way to get into Israel. So Christine's answer works for Babylon. But I can't remember. It will be in any Adventist like Uriah Smith or anything. Can anyone else remember?
Well, if you're talking about that line with pagan Rome, I guess I just got kind of confused here. Pagan Rome, Rome is going to be north, and it is west of all of this, right? So east would be Syria if you're looking at that. Am I messed up on that? Is that what the question is? Why is Syria the east?
I guess Syria was a proxy of Greece, and so it's actually not east, but they're conquering Greece by, so it's just switching king of the north there. So they're just taking a, proxy there, a country, and that makes Rome the king of the north. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all correct, but I still can't answer. So we'll have to look that up and put it in the forum if anyone can remember. I'll check Uriah Smith. I usually just go straight to Smith's Daniel and the Revelation. But thank you for that. Good question.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Morning, Aaron.
Morning.
Did you say Babylon was actually in the east, but we're considering it, yes, King of the North? So, yes, then I was thinking northeast, in the message from the north and the east about the conquering. That's all.
Tidings out of the north and out of the east.
Yeah, about the conquering.
And another confusing thing that Elder Parminder did in recent Tahiti was he called Media as the king of the north, but Cyrus as king of the north, but we usually call him king of the east, right?
So it's both. Do you remember, it must be a year and a half ago or something, I did a presentation where I showed that the symbols for Islam can be shared with the symbols for the king of the north. So I think that was one of the examples where Media Persia is the king of the north. Babylon, Media Persia, Greece and Rome, king of the north. But in Revelation 16, it's saying that the kings of the east dry up the river Euphrates. And it's obviously talking about Daniel 5. And the kings of the east that dried up the river Euphrates would be Cyrus, Darius, that kind of thing, the Medo-Persian kings. So in that sense, they can represent the east wind, which punishes Babylon for its apostasy or its bad behavior, just like it does at Daniel 12:1. So it can be both. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Must remember to look into that. Okay. Where did I get up to? I've covered that one, and I said we're going to go here. Okay, so we're going to look at the death of the king of the south. Okay, so back in the day, we always thought the death of the king of the south is just a one-stage death, if you like, complete and final death. So the way Elder Jeff taught it was that the king of the south dies here. King of the south dies here, and this would be the complete and final death of the king of the south. And I was reminded in my last presentation I've just done, we believe that all the way up until 2016, when Kimberly and Chawatu discovered Raphia and Panium in Daniel 11 and 14 or 15. And they said the king of the south goes to the borders and then withdraws and then comes back or something like that. But either way, we found out the king of the south is still a prophetic actor. And the way what Elder Tess did with that is, excuse me, is she said that this history repeats. And from Panium to Sunday law, you get the deadly wound repeating and the death repeating. So Elder Tess said you get the death in fact, she would say the complete death of the king of the south at the Sunday law, which means she corrected Elder Jeff on that. Everyone following so far?
Aaron,
Yes.
I looked up Uriah Smith.
Oh.
Says the little horn waxed great toward the east. This also was true of Rome, and Rome conquered Syria and made it a province.
Rome conquered Syria. Someone said that. Someone mentioned that Rome is here. So we had Israel, Syria.
Yeah, if you're looking at pagan Rome, then it is east. Syria is east.
Yeah, so that would work, wouldn't it? Syria is east of Rome, simple as that. Someone did say that, I'm sure. Okay, any questions on that?
I think the reasoning is that Syria was under the control of Seleucid Empire, which was the king of the north. And when pagan Rome conquered that, they became the king of the north. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I seem to remember it as well. Okay, I'll take that off the board. I'll leave it out there for a second. Thanks for that, Kathy. Sunny. Okay, so then Elder Tess corrects this and says, actually, the complete and final death of the king of the south is at the Sunday. So I just want to do a quick compare and contrast to the king of the north. I have to take that out. So if we put the king of the north in here, it says Daniel 11:41, and the king of the north shall enter also into the glorious zone. So if I just say for now, the King of the North is America. I know we're teaching it's just the Republican Party. But if I just say, for the purposes of this point I want to make, that the King of the North is America, and it shall enter also into the glorious land, which is America. So how does America, the United States, how does the United States overthrow the United States? So in the words of Elder Tess, that would be civil war, revolution, counter-revolution, or war on the Western Front. So that concept is already in place. And for now, I'm going to call that an internal victory for the King of the North, because it's internal inside the US. Okay. And then also using an old model, it's actually just the plain Adventist model. Ellen White says that as America leads out, every other country will follow suit and pass a Sunday law. So after the United States, the Sunday law goes around the world, country by country or whatever. Until here, we used to call it the universal Sunday law, when every country in the world has passed a Sunday law. But we seem to be calling it the worldwide Sunday law now. That's fine, same thing. And you can find some quotes for that in Last Day Events 135. Last Day Events 135. Okay, so then this was an internal victory for the King of the North, because it was inside America. These are the countries outside of the United States. So I'm going to call this an external victory for the King of the North. Does that make sense? Outside of the United States. And then in this model, the 1888 model, once every country in the world has been tested, may as well close probation. No more testing to do. So probation means testing. So no more testing, let's close probation. And that's when the King of the North rules the world supremely until the second advent. Okay, any thoughts or questions on that? I put complete here, so I'll put complete here as well. External and complete, because there's no more countries to conquer. Okay, so you can see the compare and contrast starts to break down now, because you've got the complete death of the King of the South here, but you've got the complete victory for the King of the North here. So it's not quite working. So if you want it to work, we should really change the complete death of the King of the South to an internal death of the King of the South. And Elder Terry has already put that in place. She says, at the Sunday Law 2024, the internal death of the King of the South is marked by the death or the murder of Navalny, which was February 2024. Anyone have any thoughts on that concept? I'm going to take out complete and put internal. So that was February 2024. the internal death of the king. So again, an internal death for the king of the south is nothing new. It's just that Elder Terry is the first person to revisit it and actually make an application of it. But in the words of Parminder around, it was 2019, I think, he used to say that the papacy, going back to that model, the papacy doesn't have an army. I think it's got a ceremonial army with the Swiss Guard or something like that. And he used to say, what do you think, the Swiss Guard's going to invade America? He said, no. The King of the North tells the King of the South to commit suicide. King of the North says to the King of the South, hey, King of the South, here's a sword. Why don't you kill yourself? And the King of the South says, oh, okay, I will. That's how Elder Parminder put that concept in place. And Tess just talked about the collapse of the Soviet Union and the internal protests that brought down the Soviet bloc and glasnost and perestroika, that kind of thing. So it's just stated as a historical fact by Tess, by Elder Tess. But it was Elder Terry that's now revisited that and made an application and put it here.
Just to comment on that about the internal death of the King of the South, I think someone asked Elder Terry about what she meant by that, and Elder Terry said that the death of Navalny was the last hope of a democratic, government for Russia. Yeah, it was the last breath of hope for Russia.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I can see that. Okay. So you've got internal death of the King of the South lining up now with an internal victory for the King of the North. Obviously, what you need to make the model complete is have the external and complete death of the King of the South at this way mark, the worldwide summary. So we said external is outside of the United States. So this external death would be outside of Russia. So where would that be? Where would we witness that?
I have just a brief comment, kind of a query as I'm thinking about it. So maybe you can realign me if I'm off course. But wouldn't the death of Navalny causing the people to lose all hope create a silencing of the people's voices? Because Navalny maintained his stance very vocally against Putin. And by silencing Navalny, if the people lose hope, that means they feel that they've lost the voice. Doesn't that seem like that makes Putin a winner? Because if you silence the voices, you've got ultimate control. And then the other thing I was thinking about was, it seems to me that an internal wound on Russia occurred before Navalny, that it occurred under President Biden's presidency when they reclaimed the narrative of the misinformation about the war, when, excuse me, Putin was saying he wasn't going to invade. And the United States intel said, yeah, he's going to invade. Putin was the master of that false narrative. And it seems like the United States took over control of that narrative and false narrative. And so that seemed like that was a wound against Russia right there. Just some thoughts, and you don't have to answer them necessarily, but just things I'm thinking about.
So your first point about Navalny, I don't know how to answer that. That was when I was on November 5th. That was my objection to Elder Terry saying it was Navalny. I'd say, how is getting rid of your only opponent a death to yourself? Like exactly what you just said.
I believe what she says is that his wife continues in his place. Gloria might have that better understood, but I believe that because they were saying he wasn't silenced because his wife continues on speaking his message.
Okay, that's right. I remember that as well now. So I think we just have to see how it plays out.
But like Elder Tess pointed out, the factor that caused the death of King of the South internally is the losing of the sphere of influence, right? That's the key factor from then on.
Yeah. That's something
because of the Ukraine war, not because of that, you know.
Okay, so you're talking more down here now.
Yes.
Okay.
But they start losing sphere of influence, right? In 2024 with Syria. And you talked about, you know, the
so now you're
Middle
using
East.
the fifth logic.
Oh, is that okay? All right.
But
maybe you have to reinstate those statements then.
I'm not even saying it's wrong. I think we need to all get together and understand what's going on. But that was my argument for November 5th, because those Middle Eastern proxies that the King of the North lost, King of the South lost, Iran, Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, it all happened around November 5th. It was October 27 when Israel destroyed all the Iranian surface-to-air missiles, their air defenses, and just left them completely exposed. Israel didn't lose a single plane or pilot. And then October, November, December 7th, I don't remember, Assad fled Syria, and Hezbollah and Hamas had already been rendered ineffective before that. And the Houthis have never been particularly effective. So all that happened around November 5th. But anyway, I don't know. We'll continue to study. But your second point, Susan, I agree with. I think from what I could tell when you were talking, that's the way Elder Tess taught it. That the information war at Panium 2021, when Biden used his elephants to his advantage, that was the deadly wound. Yeah. And then the death comes at Sunday law. But we're saying this is now an internal death.
Because he loses his spheres of influence. That's the way I always understood it as well, is that he loses his sphere of influence, and it was the King of the North that used the narrative as his own narrative or elements against him, the King of the South, and then culminating at the Sunday law, where he loses his sphere of influence, which I always thought was back with what happened in Syria, because he became basically useless in the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly.
That's still
so I don't
struggles.
Yeah, Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I still struggle with that some myself.
I can't remember everything Tess said, but the one or two clips that I had, and I think I sent them out a few months ago, she said, don't expect Russia to collapse at its death. They might just lose a proxy.
Right.
So I don't think she was using a definite prophetic model to say they will lose a proxy. I think she was just using her common sense, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking it shouldn't be a sign.
We might be surprised at what the death actually looks like. Something like that.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
I think submission is the death in a sense. Because that was the great perversion that happened to Lucifer. Because Lucifer he refused to submit to God's law of love. Therefore, his wrath and hate increased towards God. And then he perverted submission. to where he would be the ultimate oppressor and make those submit under him. And so you can kind of see that reflection in Trump, that same reflection. And so therefore, as Putin is having to submit more and more against his will, it's a crushing blow, right? It's a crushing blow because the premier position, you know, that coveted position is to be the number one on top, the one that makes all submit under. So I
Yeah.
think we're kind of watching that happening in a sense, that Putin is having to cry uncle more and more. You know what I mean?
And where are we seeing that? Which theater? Not the Middle East,
No.
With Ukraine.
with Ukraine. So
Aaron, did you think Arian's message about Orban coming to U.S. For a NATO meeting in July and just seeing Trump was significant and not meeting with? Go ahead.
Sorry,
Orban came to
this
in July, in the month of July, to Washington D.C. and met with Trump only. He went down to Mar-a-Lago, but not visited Biden at all. You know,
I don't think I remember that. I think
yeah, that was done
Arian,
in July. Yeah.
yeah, okay, thanks. I think Arian's study is good, and all those little points, I think they're all good. He's definitely, yeah, it's definitely a good study. Okay, so external from Russia is Ukraine. And as we just said, if you want to study Ukraine, I think Arian study is the one to go to. So I think what Arian does is he says this National Sunday Law is basically going to be the end of the Ukraine war. I know wars end in stages. So you agree to a peace deal, you agree to negotiations, you have the negotiations, go through all the terms of the peace deal and then try and implement it, a ceasefire, a no-fly zone, whatever, until the war ends. So I don't know what stage of the peace deal he would call the Sunday Law. So I'm just going to say the end of the Ukraine war and keep it kind of loose and open. So he'll say the end of Ukraine war. What was I going to say? End of Ukraine war. Yeah, but throughout his thread, as you just said, he has threaded a peace deal, which first started with Orban. That's his story. And so he's saying this peace deal, I think he says the phone call from Trump to Putin, whenever that was. I think it was in November, actually. That would be the start of this waymark if you're going to bookend it. And then the end of the Ukraine war would be, you know, the end of that waymark. Is that correct, according to everyone? You all understand?
That's how I remember what he's teaching. But that he does place that in 2025, not 2024.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
So
by default suggests that if the King of the South dies, if that's what we're marking at the Sunday Law, by default, it sounds like what he's saying is the Sunday Law is in 2025.
yeah, I think he is. But to use this model, if we superimpose it, I'm wondering if Arian's actually identified the worldwide Sunday Law with this event because Ukraine is external to Russia.
Yes. Both Elder Terry and Arian has said that she's identified the National Sunday Law and Arian's identifying the worldwide Sunday Law.
And you say Elder Terry said that. Has Arian said that yet?
They both have said that.
Oh,
I don't know.
Elder Terry said it, and Arian agreed with her. Elder Terry saw it before Arian saw it, and then he realized what he was doing, and they both agree.
and that was when Elder Terry was presenting to the Netherlands and Arian was in the audience.
Correct.
So I'd like to ask everyone, whoever would like to, but when I watched that, I thought Arian said, yeah, okay, I'm open to that. I'm open to that, rather than yes.
Right, but since then he's been teaching it, because when he saw it, when Elder Terry spoke about it, he saw it afterwards and then started teaching it that way.
Oh.
That Elder Terry is teaching the national Sunday law, and Arian is teaching the worldwide Sunday law, or pointing it out.
In the last month or something? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when the Netherlands was, but it's been a few weeks. I mean, maybe a month ago.
Yeah, and Troy put it here because this is what I'm sitting and thinking about. I've been watching Arian too, and I didn't get that he fully accepted. But anyways, Troy's comment is he said, but he has many questions, is what he still said. That's how I read it too, is that he still has questions on it.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's how I saw it also. That's why I was listening keenly to what Christine had to say, because I thought maybe I missed something. But I was also under the impression that everyone there saw what Elder Terry was saying, yet Arian said, well, I just can't see it yet. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, he still has questions.
Okay.
Kind of like
all
Aaron,
of us.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Aaron saw that there was something not following through, but he still has questions. Right?
Yes, correct. I've still got a couple of questions, but most of my questions have been answered. One second. I'm just going back over some messages. Okay. That would be interesting. Then I'll have to watch some of Arian's videos, more recent ones. Okay, so really that's basically it. I'm thinking the end of the Ukraine war identifies Daniel 12:1. And then something else, which I can't defend, but you've got the South here. If I said the king of the South is taken down here, then that lines up as well. But there's three times I've had questions on that. And my answer to that is, it has been explained to me, I just didn't get it. So I have confidence that someone will be able to explain it where I do get it, where we all get it. The obvious thing is, this is Egypt, and in Daniel 11:42, we say Egypt is the world. So why are we saying Egypt is Russia? But the rest of it fits so well. I think I'm just going to wait until someone can explain it in a way that I understand it.
Well, what I heard was that Egypt and Russia kind of melt together because Russia has become a non-player. They've been melted into the world. I heard that somewhere recently. I think Terry, I don't know.
Was it because Egypt was a superpower back then, and Russia was a superpower, so we have two superpowers there. So when you defeat the other superpower, you become the king of the world. So
yeah,
it was determining factor.
Could be that.
Also, before the internet, Egypt would have seemed like the world, right? As well as Rome. And then now with the internet, the world has gotten so much smaller.
So don't forget, this is the story of Greece. This is how Greece was taken down. And I think, I can't remember, but Egypt was just one territory of the Grecian Empire. Anyway, I think that explanation is forthcoming. Just have to be patient. Okay, so it's a short presentation. That's basically it. Any questions or thoughts on anything, any subject?
I'm Sabbath, Aaron.
Happy Sabbath. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you again. First of all, I was one of the people who voted on November 5th, and I'm going to admit it. I also dropped it. Uh, and there were some of the things that we were not seeing back then, but now it is electorate is making them clear based on the way she's teaching July 18, and also like connecting it with the 2014 Sunday law. There were a lot of similarities, of which when she was teaching at first, she did not come up with those kind of stuff. She was predicting based on the Quintius Fabius Maximus Gorgias, of which there was a lot of, which I still don't understand it right now, because like 273, of which you were correcting that there was no basic evidence that said that the ambassadors of the Rome went to Egypt in 272, which that was what Elder Tess was teaching. So I still haven't get a clear understanding of that. And based on the studies I've seen from Terry, she haven't got yet there. In her recent studies, she was like, I'm going to answer that, but not now. She's still working on that. And I hope I get a good clarity of that, because like, if there's no basic to back up that one, that means we cannot just like believe something that doesn't have evidence. So I hope she's working on that. And also she's also clearing a lot of things up, of which she came to conclude that at some point, like, our Sunday law is not also based on voting, of which that was a big issue about the Fabius Maximus Gorgias at that point. And I was like, okay, then what is it? And then she went back to like the patch of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party, the GOP is like the king of the North in USA, and that makes sense, because like the way if you go through the thread of the GOP until Donald Trump became a nominee in July 18, you can clearly understand, you can see what is going on there. So I really appreciate her for that, and also I really appreciate you for admitting it and continue moving on, and that's how we all learn. And I also want to thank Gloria. She was she was the one who saw a lot of things that we didn't see back then, and she kept it respectfully. And up to now, we are getting to understand some of the things that we haven't understood. Thank you so much.
Yes, I agree.
Aaron, yeah.
Yes.
How are you? Happy
Right.
Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Yeah, I've been sitting here thinking about this one question, whether it's an appropriate one or not, but your placement of the Sunday law in June 18th.
Sure.
Can you just relate why you went back to June 18th? Just
Okay.
quickly, or, short words there.
Yeah, we'll finish this anyway. So.
Okay.
Does anyone want to take a picture? And I'll probably wipe the board. Even if you've got questions on it later, we can still take questions on it. Someone got a picture?
Thank you, Aaron, for letting us take a screenshot of that before you erased it. Thank you.
So, first time I tried to explain this was a couple of hours ago. So I'm not very good at explaining it, but I'll give it another go. Okay, so the main point I had, main evidence I had for November 5th was the mark of the beast test. Where do I start? Okay, let me go. So, So we had always put the test at the Sunday law waymark. Elder Jeff used to say that the Sunday law is just like a litmus test. It's like a pregnancy test.
Hey,
Everything-
Aaron. Sorry, could you explain the test you're meaning? Mark of the Beast test or Sunday law test? Like, what is the test? Like, you're speaking of the mark of the beast, right?
Yes.
Okay. And before? Thank you.
Sunday
And
law.
sorry. Just to back up what Lana said, I never did think of the National Sunday Law or Sunday Law as the mark of the beast. I always thought the Sunday Law had to come into place in order then to put in or I don't know I can't come up with the right word. Apply the mark, to make the mark of the beast then something. But I never put them exactly together. And the image being set up, I saw as separate also to the Sunday law.
So you've got the image of the beast and the mark of the beast. For most of this, I'm going to stick to the 1888 one. Because we're using Ellen White so much as we look into this. So you've got the image of the beast, which is church and state uniting. And when they unite, they force the people to receive a mark. So the mark of the beast was Sunday sacredness. Some people were already going to go along with it. They don't need to be forced.
So then that means that National Sunday Law should come after the mark of the beast, right?
I always thought the Sunday law was the mark of the beast. And I don't remember ever hearing anyone, Adventist or in the movement, saying any different. Does anyone?
Oh, so it's the same thing then, mark of the beast and Sunday Law, National Sunday Law, right?
Yeah.
I was always trying to get clarity on that also. Thank you, Lana, for pointing that out. Because I always saw one thing had to be in place before it was enforced. So I always sort of saw it more progressive than right at the moment.
So I think you're still right that something has to be in place. The image of the beast has to be set up. And that messes up things again. I was going to say this. The image of the beast has to be set up and in place.
Yeah, like July 18.
Yeah, for them to then enforce the
That's the image. But it's
That-
not. But people still had to elect that form of government and put it in place. Didn't a Republican have to be in office in the executive branch in order to have then taken down the legislative and judicial? But I'm not saying that the vote meant mark of the beast, but they elected that form of government. But I can sure see that July 18th is the image. That I can see without a doubt. But I still am struggling with these three parts, and Lana brought that piece out also. I see a separation in the three, sort of, yet they do all unite, but I see them as separate entities, so to speak. I don't know how to explain it. And I could be so off base, but...
No, I think I'm with you on that one, if I'm honest. So I can see that clearly as well. You said you can just see that clearly, no problem. And I think Elder Terry teaches that. Is that right? So.
But she teaches it's the Sunday law.
Yes.
And that's where I can't seem to come into unity.
And then what's the next stage? It's set up, it's revealed.
It's set up, and then all the, well, I always go back to the Nebuchadnezzar story, right? Then he has everyone come in to admire it, which reminded me of January 20th when all those bigwigs came to stand around. I could see that. But then it has to be spoken, and I heard that when he gave that speech saying there's only two genders in America. You could kind of hear the enforcement of what's going to come and the speaking of the dragon. And then people take on the personification of that reflection of who their counterpart is. Are they going to reflect Trump? And, you know, he reflects Lucifer.
And then it's also, Susan, I agree with you. Also, I think there's also another one is that follows is the going after the people who do not bow down, right, to the image. The stage 4 is persecution or punishment of the people that did not.
Okay, so I'm not lining these up. That's why I boxed it off.
Can I also make a note? It seems to me, could it be that the Sunday law, what in the story in the what we call a Sunday law in the past, is a one thing that is actually when you close up, it's this mark of the beast, is the setting up life and then the music and then persecution and all of that, meaning that it's not from afar, it looks like one dot Sunday law. But when you come up closer, it actually comes in stages, right? Because like every process, it comes in stages, setting up and then convincing the majority, where the majority has to come and, vote. And then, there is a opposition and, right? So could it be that the Sunday law is like a general, so if you put figure bracket between, those three, and say this is Sunday law, do you think that is what's going on?
So where would you put Sunday law, sorry?
It's like bracket. So if you put figure bracket of all three of them, right? And then say this is one dot Sunday law.
So I think this is loud cry. I think that's fairly solid. So then, if you agree with the music being the loud cry, because it does say, and they cried aloud in Daniel 3, something like that, would you want to change 1 and 2 bracket to Sunday?
Yeah, I think that's fine too.
Yeah, that's real good, because even if you think of, and what you said, Lorna, the intensity increases. That's what I heard in a sense of what you were describing, that the intensity of what's going to happen, the pressure is coming down more and more and more, right? And if you even think of a wrestling match, when the guy has the one under his control and finally he can't get out of that pin, then he cries, right? Then he cries. And so you can see that as the pressure and restrictions are impeding upon people, and it comes to a point where it affects everyone, because the things that are happening are eventually going to affect everyone. And you'll cry for relief, for release. That's why I can see that come in those sequences as you have it.
I have a question. Putting threes, music, bowing, speaking, loud cry, are you saying that he doesn't speak like a dragon until the loud cry? Is that what that means?
So
No. He has to speak for it to have life. And once the life is in it, then it begins to be more oppressive until the people cry from the oppression, the loud cry.
Aaron, how about if you put the number 1 as unsealing and number 2 as increase of knowledge and 3 as formalization or test? Because I think Elder Terry puts January 20th as number 2 there. Increase of knowledge there.
Really? So this is January 20?
Increase of knowledge there. Yeah.
Oh,
Someone can confirm that. I think that's where she put in one of her recent one.
anyone seen it?
I think so.
So if you look in the chat, oh, okay. There's someone who watches every video that ever comes out. And he says
I
he's
did
watching.
like what you laid out in the Q&A at El Librito. Kind of what you're
yeah.
starting to work on down on that line there, where you showed that the test, because at the big waymarks, it's a test that's based on the previous dispensation, the unsealing, the increase of knowledge and formalization, then the test. But also that big waymark has a new message that arrives. And at National Sunday National Sunday Law, then that new message that would arrive would have to be based on Daniel 12:1, which would be the close of probation, right? So if the image was, if we were 2021 Panium, it was radical feminism, and now we see during Panium, don't we see the rise or the creation, if that's the right word to use, the development of the image. And then at the RNC, I mean, I know I probably don't have everything right, but that's how I see it, is that the RNC could easily be the image being set up and revealed.
Yes.
But the people then still had to choose it. And Elder Parmenter says that the King of the North has never been the Democrats. It is the Republican Party. But the Democrats failed to prevent it from happening.
Yes.
So are you saying by that, what you just laid out, the logic, Elaine, that then means that image was a Sunday law, which goes back to what Donna and Renee have questioned and brought out, because I'm repeating myself for some. Rachel Maddow brought out before the election was called that Donald Trump, she had videos with him telling his people they didn't even need to vote. They didn't even need to vote because he had enough votes. So are we saying then that they already had it in the bag then? And therefore that's the justification for July 18th being the Sunday law? It just seems like it's a step. I can still see it as definitely it had to be in place, but I'm still struggling with it.
I think Elder Terry uses the purging of the Republican Party from 2014 to 2024 being the first witness for July 18th, which is quite airtight to me. Yeah.
Yes.
What happened to, Stephen Miller, the work that he did.
So it seems like we're all agreeing on this.
Yes, I am.
Anyways,
yeah.
Purging, all of that.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Because I did this, which is an old model, by the way. If we're saying image of the beast is here, I've made it look like the Sunday law, which is the mark of the beast comes after. And that's what sparks all this off.
And you should put that manosphere there, mark of the beast.
Yes,
just
exactly.
to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah, manosphere on July 18 and all of that. I agree.
Sunday's just a symbol.
But doesn't it need to have the executive branch in order to enforce its image?
Okay.
Or to give
So
it
we'll move
life.
on.
Huh?
Yeah. I guess that's why Elder Terry puts the life there. So I'm okay with that. I used to argue it had to be November 5th because the executive branch has to be taken, but that was incorrect. To make it have to fit one exact day, that wasn't the purpose of that doctrine, to time set or anything like that. It was just to say, I'll say Trump has to be in the White House to dictate over the UN because the legislative and judicial can't dictate over other countries.
Yeah, I can't get past that either because even in heaven, they had to decide which government they were going to choose. So until, just to me, the GOP alone choosing it doesn't mean the glorious land chose it yet, unless they already had it in the bag. But we're still saying that we had a free and fair election. So I just can't get by that.
Can I add one more comment?
Yeah.
When you see the studies of Elder Terry, talking about July 18 being the Sunday law, also like she was like, what is our test? Equality. We all know that, right? And also like, what are we fighting against? Against it is like patriarchy, of which that was fully displayed on July 18 during RNC convention, and everybody saw that, especially when Donald Trump came out with the song, music of James Brown. This is the man war. Like, I would not say like all the Americans who like voted, they know like how patriarchy was being portrayed. Exactly, we need a strong man. So like when they went to vote on November 5th, they already know what what they were getting. So it wasn't like a surprise to any of them that patriarchy is what America is going to be now, from now on. So and also in the movement, we gotta know that like Trump is going to win anyway. In November 5th was not like a surprise to all of us that Trump was going to win. So when you trace it back to like 2014 Sunday law, it was the same thing, exactly what happened. The Tea Party and the GOP like changed themselves from being moderate to like going a little bit extreme from that time until now. The same thing that happened in RNC July 18, that everybody saw what the next government of the state is going to be like and going to look like, and that was like the character of the beast, which is like patriarchy that they were portraying. That you can see the mark of the beast as a character.
Just going along with Emmanuel's comment, just going back to history, Pope Pius the 11th purged the Central Party for Mussolini to come into power. Pope Pius the 12th purged the Central Party for Hitler to come into power. Bannon, which is a conservative Catholic with Miller and Sessions, purged the Republican Party, gave the seat, power, and authority to the Republican Party by purging it to the far right, gave the power to Trump, July 18. And so that's why he's, king of the party now. Yeah. That was the key, the purging of the party. History repeats now. Yeah. With World War III, Ukraine being the World War III.
So you're saying then the test begins there, because I'm sort of beginning to see what the reasoning is. I'm just trying to those were excellent points, Gloria. And Emmanuel shared. I do not disagree with you either, Emmanuel, on what you shared. It just seems that voting it in was over the line. Like it just seems like it's still a
So,
peace
yeah,
because
if
the
I
people had to choose that form of government.
yes,
But
so just commenting on Elder Parmender's presentation 8 is the one of the 7. He talks about Revelation 17, how the kings committed fornication with the woman, the kings of the earth. So we have this minority Republican, party committing fornication with the woman, and the people are just a collateral damage. They had no, a say on this. And he talks about that in that presentation, how it wasn't the fault of the people.
But Gloria, Elder Parmenter also, before the election happened, before we even came to this place that we're at now, I remember he did a presentation about how we could, something to the effect of, could God's people, these are my words, would God's people go against prophecy? And of course we'd say, oh no, we don't want to go against prophecy. But what he led us to understand is that we had to do everything within our power to make sure the Sunday law did not go into place. I remember that. And how can you do everything within your power other than live it yourself in your basically small dot on this planet Earth? How is that going to affect other people? So I always thought that voting, in a sense, against having that government, was a way to do everything within my power as a human being to stop it from going into place. So I also struggle with that because he definitely said we needed to do everything within our power to prevent it from occurring, So at least that's how I understood what he said.
May I make a comment? So we're using the model of conquering and of the King of the North. So when people are conquered, they really don't have a choice. Would that fit?
Can you repeat, Kathy? Sorry.
So the model of the King of the North in 3 geographic areas. The King of the North conquers the glorious land. And would that mean then that the voting is not necessary because it's conquered?
Excellent thought. Yeah, I could see that.
It's
And
conquered because
Was it
it's a war of ideas and the war of culture. And the war of culture was showing that manosphere was like killing everything. And so you might see it in that respect. I don't know.
Maybe we need to also be looking at the steps, the power, seat, and great authority. Wouldn't we need to look at that too, to properly bring that in as part of this to help us properly line things up? Because he gets everything that the first beast has, right? And pagan Rome handed its power, seat, and authority over to papal Rome. So how do you work that with the United States? Because the United States takes over. So go ahead.
Would that be the 6th kingdom giving everything to the 7?
Would it be?
In the model we have at the moment.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the conquering was within the United States using its own democratic process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all the rules and things were changed prior to November 5th. They had 4 years to prepare. So it was stealth. And it was in the open too. We saw a lot of the news articles and just a thought.
Yeah.
Haven't people had the chance, surely we have as well, to trace these steps 2014 to where we're at in 2024 or 2025 to be able to see the image having been set up, and then now what we're witnessing is, and we've been witnessing it since actually even just before the election, with people, either people capitulating, companies capitulating, bowing. Isn't that the same thing? Bowing,
Yeah.
or those that are being forced to bow, because there are those that are also being forced to bow
Universities,
already.
etc. But don't forget, that's an increasing line. It swells.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we would be.
But it speaks at
It's
Sunday. Doesn't it speak at Sunday law, not at loud? I mean, it speaks obviously at loud cry, louder. But,
Yeah, so the loud cry, according to that model, starts at Sunday law.
yeah,
When someone said, doesn't the speaking start at Sunday law? That's the way I imagine the speaking, like the dragon speaking and the 144,000, you could say speaking, giving the message. We're both crescendo. At the same time as the Sunday law enforcement or capitulation is swelling, we could say at the same rate, just to make it neat and tidy.
yeah.
So you're placing the speaking at January 20th in this line of reasoning, when he refused even to acknowledge that pastor, Budgie, or what her name was, that asked for mercy on people, and he refused mercy, right? And this is how it's going to be, and you go along with it or else, happened on January 20th, because that same day is when the pastor, that female pastor, cried for mercy for God's people, for humanity, but Trump refused.
Okay, so can I ask, Elder Terry places January 20 is when the image is given life, and she says that's concord. Does Elder Terry agree that the speaking is the loud cry? Or does she think the speaking is earlier or later? I guess it can't be later. Does anyone know? Or was she not mentioned speaking?
I don't recall her say that. I know that she just put loud cry as a test for the mark of the beast test.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
I am happy that Elaine brought up seed power and authority, because now another perspective that came to my mind is the three steps, which, of course, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but my thought is this: the seat would be at July 18th, and then the power may be the electorate. The authority is when it starts to do its work. This would be at inauguration. I don't know if anybody else is seeing that three steps, but it's good to venture, to study along that path, to see just those perspectives, I believe.
Okay.
There's old studies that Elder Parmenter did, maybe 2017, 2016 in Arkansas, where he goes through the power, seat, and great authority, where those are pinpointed.
330 and 476 and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Justinian, yeah. So does Elder Terry say how we were in concord, or anyone else was it, internal or external, for January 20? Because I don't think we're even in concord now, like in one accord.
Right.
Because I think Elder Terry puts the July 18 message, her message, at Exeter in the harvest of the what? Levites, would it be? I think, yeah, Levites, yeah. So what's my point? So then putting it at that way, Mark, which I'm okay with. Carry on. Comments? May 30, 2024.
I'm really grateful that you're allowing us all to express our views, because I think this is how we'll come into greater understanding and come together with our understanding.
I'm only doing that because I'm so confused I've got nothing to say.
Yeah, I hear you. But I know that it's going to come down to taking all the models and laying them out. I'm just not good at it. Taking all the models and laying them out to where we can eliminate any mistakes and come to the full light.
Right.
Because would we say that he doesn't have great authority yet, or would we say that he has great authority now? Or would we put great authority at the worldwide? Or, you know what I mean? How would you lay that out? How, I'm not asking if you have the answer, just these are just thoughts.
So that would be on the line of papal Rome, which I didn't include.
Which would be Sunday law, right? Sunday law, 538 is Sunday law, right?
321 was a Sunday law and 538 was a Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, when papacy took over, that's what I meant. When the papacy took over, that's what I meant. 538. That's Mark's. If you line up the captivity, that's the beginning of captivity. So the people are taken into captivity at the Sunday law, and so we're now in captivity. Correct? Sorry.
Give me a couple of weeks, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
For now, I would say yes to that.
To the captivity, because when you have the Babylonian captivity, it was when Jerusalem was conquered and they go into Babylon for 70 years. And then Ellen White marks the 1260, the same as the 70, and the 1260 begins at 538. So you have Jerusalem being taken captive by Babylon, and they go into captivity. Then you have the Christian church being taken into, however you look at that, but the papacy set up, and you've got captivity. And then those mark this. This is if you take the last 7 kings of Judah, you come to where we're at today, because we've received all the warnings and now the Sunday law has happened. And so you're in captivity again. So if that great authority was at 538, is that where the great authority was? 538? So he would already have great authority if I did that right.
I could see that. I'm open to correction, but I could see that too.
Hello, Elaine and Aaron.
Hi.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, maybe this is the time, I mean, it's just going through my mind that it's maybe this is the time that it takes all the lines to figure out, because this is the last test, right? There's no more tests after this. So to me, just going back to my college years, it's a final test. And so if it's the final test, it's comprehensive, which means everything that we learned previously, it's going to have to come into play, which means it might just take more than one or two lines to understand what's going on. And so when Elaine mentioned the seat, the power, the authority, what came to my mind was the daily. And the daily had to be taken away, right? And Elder Preminder said that it's the atheistic, of something like this. I can't remember exactly, but it's the atheistic government that is good for God's people. Right? It's atheistic government, the civil government is God's protection. So the daily, to me, that's the daily. And that had to be taken away. And what I saw was 496, 508, then 538. So the daily was taken away. And then Clovis at 496 gave the one of the like power or the seat, and then 508 was the seat, and then 538 was the authority. 538, right? That's
It just
so
marked 533.
533. Okay. So what I guess what I'm seeing is not having any answers is that maybe it behooves us to go back to all the lines, comprehensive exam, to see what it is that what the answer is for us today. That's just my thought.
It seems a little bit like we are doing that. Yeah, we're going over all the old models as well. It's things I thought we would never look back on like this. So,
But you put 533, and I just don't remember. Was it 533? And if so, what was it? And that's before the papacy had before the captivity.
So 533, the Great Authority. Justinian declares the papacy head of churches and corrector of heretics. That would be straight from Jeff, way back, 20 or more years ago. I only ever watched Jeff, so I didn't watch Jamal Sankey or any other invented, so.
Yeah.
Another note, 533, Great Authority. Justinian gave the Pope the Roman Empire's civil authority by a decree identifying the Pope, saying head of churches, corrector of heretics. So you've got 508 daily taken away on a different verse. The daily's taken away 508, 538. The third horn is plucked up. Paganism places the abomination that maketh desolate. Yeah. Rome rules the world supremely. That's always the way he said it. The seat was when it was moved from Constantinople to Rome, or Rome to Constantinople. No. Rome is 330. Rome is split into east and west as the capital moved from Rome to Constantinople. And then Rome started to disintegrate after the NSL. National ruin, it follows national apostasy.
I've heard rumblings. I don't know if they're true yet, but I've heard rumblings that Trump was going to move the White House, his position, to Mar-a-Lago, And when I heard that, I immediately thought of that right there, what you were saying, right? Okay, help me. His name, Constantine moved yeah. But
Just want to
In
remember the presentation. So just quick notes, because the presentation I did this morning was to the UK. So you had Elder Parminder in that one. And Ignatius made a point about this. I recommend you watch the UK's one that was from today, that's all, because it covers all this. Okay, sorry, I interrupted someone. Carry on.
So Elder Terry does mention about the seat power authority in her presentation, the line of the Nethinims. She puts seat as 2016. She says that we can mark a dictator in 2016, but he's restrained. He doesn't have full support of the party. 2019 lines up with 508. The seat is 330. Power is 508. 2019, and she says we can have a dictator in 2019, but restrained by circumstances. And 2024, July 18, will be authority. Lines up with 538. And
sorry, can I?
And the dictator is no longer restrained.
Power is 508 when the daily was taken away. Visigoth 508, daily's taken away. Visigoths defeated by Clovis in 507 AD. 508 is the power. 496. 496. Clovis changed the legal religion of France from paganism to papalism. That's right. I remember that. Power. Clovis. 496. Same. Gave his military power to the papacy. That's the way Jeff used to teach. I'm assuming he got that from Smith. But anyway.
so is that the commander-in-chief? The president is the commander-in-chief?
Yeah.
Military? Is that a straight over?
I'm not too sure. I don't even understand. I don't understand a lot. I don't think I should be up here doing this anymore.
Oh, stop.
There's a comment that I want to ask about Elder Terry's perspective of authority, maybe over the GOP. So because I think what Gloria was just saying is that Elder Terry marks the great authority at July 18, but he's not able to exercise. He does have authority over them.
That's what I say, Elaine.
But doesn't he have to have authority over
a governing body of people? The United States.
Let me correct that. He says July 1st. Yeah. As authority.
You mean the Supreme Court? When the Supreme Court?
Yeah. It's
okay.
July 1st.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 538 is the July 18. And the dictator is no longer restrained. She writes that.
But he still has power only within his
party.
Yeah, that's I just can't get by that.
Yeah, me too, Susan.
I mean,
following this. Wow.
And now I'm feeling like I don't want to just go along to get along. I love everybody, so I'm not trying to be a rebellious sort of any type. But I really want to get grounded in this understanding to where I feel I could sell it to somebody. I have to really believe it, because I never have been able to sell anything in my life, because I've never believed in any product enough to, but I believe in God, and I believe in God's truth, and I want to be able to sell this with all my soul. So
we'll get there. It's painful getting there, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Bear with me if I'm irritating anyone.
And I'm thinking the great something Christine put in the chat a bit ago about when on January 20th, when he starts signing executive orders, because he's putting the pen to the paper. I think that's actually the way you worded it, Christine, the pen to the paper. And he's exercising that authority now. So is there a difference between when he receives the great authority and he actually uses the great authority?
Wasn't that the 533 to 538? 2 steps of authority
Okay.
with Justinian?
So where would you mark? Would you mark it at 538 though? Then when he gets the in the second step?
Oh, I don't know.
We all need some major history lessons.
538 is when the third horn is pumped up and he rules the world supreme. So, and Gloria said that July 18. And 508, I'm doing it in a different color because it's a different verse. 508 is the daily. Taken away, there's no room. So, Gloria, what modern date is the power that Elder Terry says? Because I interrupted you because I was trying to go backwards.
You know, I think that's the impeachment, right? 2019. So 2016 is seat when he wins his first presidency. 2019 is when he's impeached but not removed. Authority would be July 1st when the Supreme Court, annuls him from any criminal act. And July 18 is just, he's a dictator. He's declared dictator. So power, seat, power, authority, 2016, 2019, July 1st, 2024.
Okay. So in one or two of these, Elder Terry's date differs from Jeff's. Because I think you said 508 goes here or something, power. I can't remember. Okay, so I'm the same as you, Susan. I'm saying I'm on board July 18. Now I need to be able to present it, answer questions. I'm the same as you. And I feel like I can answer this one, probably another time. And this one. This one.
What's number 3? What am I
sorry?
missing? What's number 3?
Sorry? The White House.
Oh, look, I'm sorry. Okay, I can't read.
On July 18. Sorry?
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
it looks like White Mouse.
Yeah. Thank you.
Could you remind me what's about the White House?
Yeah. So one of my points against July 18 was we've always taught that a Republican president has to be in the White House or take the White House in order at Sunday law. And so I said that wasn't July 18 because Biden was in the White House July 18, but November 5th, the Republican president took the White House, and that was my argument. Okay, but that's not a valid argument. My friend reminded me that that doctrine that a Republican president has to be in the White House at Sunday law doesn't identify the exact day of the Sunday law. You know, is it July or is it 3.5 months later, November or whatever it is? All it's saying is during this Sunday law history, America dictates over the United Nations. So during this whole history, you have to have a Republican president in the White House to dictate over the United Nations. It doesn't tell you the exact day that it starts. So I'm okay with that. I really believe that is fully correct. I can answer that. The hardship's going to come up in the future. It still needs to be answered. What Susan was saying, it wasn't the whole of America, it was half of America. The way we answered that was by saying the King of the North is just the Republican Party. So when the Republican Party votes for Trump at the RNC, that's the whole ship voting. Maximum vote, if you like. But I think that needs to be looked at a bit more.
I think wouldn't it be part of I don't know, I hope I don't add confusion to this. Because the sixth head is literally the ship of Alexandria, right? Well, the sixth head is the ship of Alexandria. And that in Revelation 17 is the time when the king of the north is, or the beast is dead.
Yes.
So then you have, and then 1863, they go off course, and you have this battle throughout history until you come to Daniel 11:40, which we know marks 1989, where you now have this seventh head being seen, right?
That's what we're teaching right now, isn't it? Yeah.
So you have the Republican Party is the king of the north, and then you have the Democrat Party is the one that failed to restrain or hold back the king of the north. So that would make up the whole ship, wouldn't it? Because the king of the north, it's the Democrat Party that's been restraining or trying to keep at bay the king of the north from being resurrected.
Oh, Elaine, do you mean that just made me think when we saw the red wave, that showed the ship. When we saw the red wave, the amount of voters that voted for this image, we saw what the ship was full of. Do you understand what I mean by what you just said, Elaine?
I'm trying to remember the red wave.
You're saying it's the full ship because the Democratic Party failed to restrain that power. And when we saw the red wave, it just confirmed how much of that mentality, whatever word you want to put on that, how many people took that manosphere hook, line, and sinker. That was their ideology. So it shows the whole ship contaminated. Crash.
The ship is shipwrecked.
Yeah, crash. Then it crashes.
And that would be the ship of Alexandria, which was the protector and defender of the people.
And Castor and Pollux is waiting in harbor to move forward from there. The ship with the ensign of Castor and Pollux is waiting in the harbor.
Right.
To take over.
We gotta get past Sunday law before we can go there.
Yeah, I know. But that half ship and the whole ship and the thought of how many people compose that, make up the people on the ship, I think many of us were surprised that many, when the red wave happened in the United States, I think we thought it would be closer contest. We didn't realize how many people wanted, Trumpism.
We're going to say that about this January 20th. America is actually in Concord. Popular vote, electoral college, all three branches, flipped all 7 states. So maybe that does work. I don't know if we were in Concord internally. I think Gloria said this. Do you or anyone know, did Elder Terry mention how internally and externally we're in Concord on January 20th? I can see the external.
I'm not sure about that line, so we have to double check.
So Susan, yeah, you're not alone. These things need to be answered. Quintus, I'm confident, will be answered. This one, I don't think it really needs to be answered. It's fairly minor. That one's relatively minor point. But anyway, these other things, yeah, I think that will be answered as well. So.
Good brain flexing exercise.
Yeah,
flexing
Aaron,
anything in my head. It's just
just a thought, Aaron, if you can hear me.
yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking on the thought of Trump being restrained in the time we're in now, because there is still restraints on him. And it also goes along with the fall of democracy, because democracy hasn't completely vanished.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of judges, I mean, in the judicial branch itself, even the Supreme Court, that I noticed this last week, I think it was Roberts who came down on Trump and did not agree with him on, not sure what the action was. But so even there, those are still restraints on him from just going full bore, even though he's taken, all these executive orders and firing people all over the place within the government. There's judges that are coming down on him about that especially that USA huge group over doing work around the world. And
yeah,
they're saying, that they've got a lawsuit on him for that. So, that's just little pieces of it, that are looking as though he just can't do whatever he wants. I mean, it appears that he is right now, but how far is that going to go?
He was calling for the impeachment of the judge. And then Robert was like, no, you cannot settle.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot settle argument like that. But he did not give a reason whether Trump can call for the judge to be impeached or not. So that means he still got him there. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a movement going forward too of impeachment, but I mean, if Trump were impeached, to me, it doesn't hold up what the line is showing us. He is the one that we're looking at as being the control, the seventh king. So
May I make a comment, Jackie?
sure, go ahead. Anything helps.
Wasn't he impeached first time during his first presidency?
No. They brought it forward, but it didn't go through.
He was impeached. I don't remember the distinction. He was impeached.
Yeah, he was impeached.
Yeah, in the
He was
House.
impeached.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That
Like what I'm
was
trying to
okay.
I just don't.
That was
Lana remembers how it works, but he was impeached both times, but I don't remember the term that he didn't get.
He wasn't removed.
And I
he
don't
wasn't
remember the term.
removed. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
was
the
the Senate
process
vote,
went forward. Yeah.
the Senate vote that didn't remove him out of office, but he was officially impeached, but he was not removed from office with that
Right.
impeachment.
Right.
Acquitted.
Right, acquitted. Thank you.
What
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that I think the populace, the strength of the Trump supporting people is so frightening to Republicans, or maybe they are more frightened than there is actually opposition. But I think there is so much fear from the Republicans that even if he's impeached, it may not mean much. Just like judges, they issue this restraining orders, right? The stay of right but like it doesn't do anything if Trump doesn't comply with it, and what you're gonna do about it? Because he's the one controlling the executive. He's the chief. He's the executive power, right? So the courts don't have ways to enforce themselves without the executive power, which is the law enforcement.
Yeah, I agree with that. They can only do.
Good point.
There's so much to juggle. I I can see Elder Terry's perspective with July 18th. I have to just remind myself that the King of the North is the GOP, and I can see the bookend starting from 2014, and then he has the authority over the GOP. But there's another question: the glorious land. I mean, yes, he's now in control of the party, but when was the glorious land captured?
Oh yeah. Has anyone thought of that before, or can anyone make a comment?
I thought it was through the election, and then
That's what I say too, Kathy. I was thinking the same thing, a red wave, because it shows how many people were conquered.
Exactly.
And then he's using the principles and laws of democracy to be turned around and used against everyone. And he's got the power. I mean, look at how many businesses and universities and people compromising, and a professor from Yale is literally leaving to go to Canada because he wrote a book about how fascism works. And he compared it to the early times of Hitler, when all the educated people left Germany.
And Columbia University gave it to him as well.
I mean, people are afraid, Republican or Democrat. I mean, there's things, because like even the Republicans who voted for Trump are suffering. Some are angry with it. Some are like, well, we have to go through a little pain to get to the goal, or something like that.
Take one for the team.
Yeah, completely drink the Kool-Aid. But I mean, they traveling, your phone can be looked at TSA, or if you're doing an outside the United States, your laptop, anything can be looked at, whether you're a citizen or not. And if you have the wrong photograph, or you have the wrong whatever, you could be a target. So, I mean, I think there is a level of power and fear and control, but it's escalating. You know what I mean? It's not like fully matured.
No, and his deportations as well of people has a lot of, is also, there's a lot of people in fear of that they're just walking into colleges and they took that woman, I can't remember her name, just last week into custody. And so it's forcing people to have to go along with his way.
Sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add, countries around the world are posting travel cautions to their citizens who are deciding to come to the United States for a vacation or to visit family, because they will be totally liable or suspect, because there was somebody describing the immigration ICE people, that they are the law and judge themselves. Like, they have the power right then and there to do whatever they want. They can they can detain. I forget the 3 Ds. It's something detain, deport. There's another D and I can't remember what it is. But anyway, so there's, how many, has it ever been given to people around the world to say, we're giving a travel advisory, do not travel to the United States?
It's crazy.
I don't think I've ever heard that in my whole life.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think you're right, Kathy. I don't think that's ever been. And I just want to interject very briefly. I know we're over time, but I just wanted to say, when it comes to elections, I remember before the election, we were instructed in this movement that it was our responsibility to vote, especially this vote. This was
it was a moral.
It's a
duty.
moral responsibility, and if we did not vote, we would be committing a sin. And then now Donald Trump is using the election, the fact that he won, as evidence that he can do whatever he wants because he was elected by the people. So elections to me is still very important. I don't know how all of a sudden it's not, but it is. I still see it as extremely important. Elections are the voice of the people, whether it's, free and fair or whether it's, corrupt, whatever. It's a voice and it's a choice, not just a voice, but it is a choice. And so I just wanted to interject that.
Yeah.
Amen. And Francisco mentioned the other morning, because this goes to the deportations and the criminalizing of people, right? Innocent people. They're not even given a jury by their own peers. They're automatically condemned as being a terrorist under the guidelines of whatever this government says makes up a terrorist, and they're being deported to their country. And then Francisco brought out, and some of them are being put into torture prisons. There was one fella here in the United States. He was a gay hairdresser, and he had got over here legally, where he applied, right, to become a citizen, and he was working here, and he had like some kind of snake tattoo or regular tattoos, but they arrested him saying that he had gang tattoos, and they sent him to an El Salvadorian torture prison. And this is what they're doing. But Francisco said that if now Trump can say these countries that have these terrorists, since we are deporting them to these countries, now Trump can say that I can go in and do a war against this country because it's full of terrorists, right? So if you don't go along with this regime, you see the results of it. But that was just a new angle that Francisco brought in the other morning. I hadn't read about that. And we'll be seen as terrorists if you're going against this, just like Christ was a seditionist, right? Because if you don't go along with this, you don't love America. You're not American. You're not patriotic.
Trump took $7 million of taxpayers' money to send to Venezuela to harbor these guys. 7 million American taxpayer dollars to pay them to put these people in prison. To keep that quiet.
The fear factor has also, I've read, has spread into all the attorney pool. There's a lot of people that will not even stand up and try to represent people who are going against anything that this MAGA movement is supporting and what Trump is doing right now. And so there's a lot of people who have legitimate cases, that they would want to litigate, and they can't even find an attorney that's willing to stick their neck out right now.
Yeah. All these events that are happening right now, like they also like give us knowledge of how LARCRA is going to look like in our time. Because if you cannot write an article criticizing the government, if you cannot say anything that's going to criticize Donald Trump, you will go to jail. So you can see how everyone is going to go into fear mode and how LARCRA is going to be like, really. And also like for as a in the movement, I think we criticize Trump a lot. Even if you go to your phone, whatever we sending your phone, it's all about the politics. They don't want to see that when you're traveling. They will check that in your phone. So it's highly for us to be cautious and we will be mindful of what we say and where we go and what we do. So
This
Why
was a
not?
very refreshing exercise. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, but also I know I'm going to return to a lot of the old presentations to try to get these lines all straight because they have to, it's through all these lines and these repetitions of histories that we're going to be able to come to the right conclusion, it seems. We're all
Amen.
seeing a lot go on. We're seeing how he's behaving, but we need to know from the lines what the lines, because the lines are the ones that direct us.
I agree. Aaron, can I give you a slight rebuke?
Please. Good idea.
Never have the thought why, you don't know why you're teaching or you shouldn't be teaching or something like that. Never say that, my friend.
I agree.
Excellent.
Hear, hear. Don't you dare talk about my friend like that, Aaron.
Do it.
There's a war going on inside me. Yeah. What I know is I'm going to need all your help through this whole history. And some of you are helping me very much already, I must say. Okay. Any other thoughts?
So in conclusion, we are between the Sunday law and loud cry, or already moving away from, not to say moving away because we are in that period, right? Because it's like going on probably. But what I'm trying to say, are we moving towards loud cry, or are we still moving towards increase of knowledge?
So apparently Elder Terry's thought that we're past the increase of knowledge. That must have been very recently, Lana, because I remember we're not at loud cry yet, I'm sure, personally. Sorry, I did ask this already. Maybe no one answered, or maybe they did and I've forgotten. Does Elder Terry say how internally and externally the parties are in concord?
Yes, you did ask that question, but I don't think it was answered.
Okay. If anyone knows, shout out. Otherwise, okay.
I think we're following Elder Tess's model where we, before 2014, we accept the date, and then something we try to understand after the Sunday law waymark, right? So this Concord may be us trying to understand now why July 18 is the Sunday law waymark. Just a thought, yeah.
I see how that works, yeah. So increase of knowledge was 2016 there when we didn't know. Didn't people, yeah, anyway. And then, okay, using,
Literally that box wasn't even unpacked until 2019 or 2020, I think. The 2014 box that we received, it was not, it was.
So
Yeah.
that logic, I'd have to find another way to explain it. If that becomes set, I wouldn't be able to explain it that way because that repeating pattern, if you watch last week, I think, was part 2, question and repeating pattern. I don't think you can use the repeating pattern that way. If that's even what you're saying, what Elder Terry's saying. This would be 2018 Cambridge Analytica. But that is a unique, out of every other formalization, increase in knowledge, I think that's a unique property. And the way I would answer it, my best guess is because that message was unique, because it was the only one that was ever blocked, come into silenced. So we couldn't figure out what the Sunday law was before the event. But if a messenger could do it in 2018, any one of God's messengers could have done it before or at 2014 or whatever. Anyway. Okay. Any last thoughts or before we close? Feel free.
You take a picture of your board work.
Sure. Do you want Simon in the picture or?
You can get Simon to squish down just a little.
Look how big
Oh,
he
cute
is.
picture.
Beautiful Simon.
So maybe somebody's handy get a screenshot real quick. Christine, I don't have my program open. I don't know if you do, but if somebody do a
Yeah, I'm
screen.
just catching it right now.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Can't believe they didn't want you in the picture, Simon.
Oh, we did. Cool? Just if he just had to squish down just a little bit more.
Bring Simon back now.
Yeah.
Picture
Wow.
with Simon, maybe. We'll put that as the YouTube.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Looking really unhappy sitting there. Get off. Okay, thank you so much. I found that was great, really interesting, amazing. So let's close in prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you as always for good friends, for this good message, and we just pray you'll help us through this Sunday law of history, which we always knew would never be easy. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name.
Amen.
It was so lovely to be back with you all again.